Well, I did it. I did the absolute unthinkable. I did what even Guantanamo Bay would never even consider doing because they think it is too inhumane for torture. But I decided, for some unknown reason, that I would watch Morbius and Madame Web back to back to have the definitive answer of which movie is actually worse than the other. And you may be asking yourself, Joey, why are you wearing a poncho? I have nothing else to live for after watching this movie. That's it. Now, I should preface by saying that I've never seen Morbius before. I know the memes. I know that they had him re-release the movie, but I was not in any way interested in seeing that movie when it first came out. But knowing that Madame Web was a contender for the worst movie of all time, I felt like I had to decide once and for all. I feel like I should definitely talk about Madame Web first because this is the most prominent movie out right now, but it is bad. I should say that there's actually a few good things about the movie, and if you haven't seen it, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you now, it's not a spoiler, but the red carpet was the best part about that movie. Those two on the red carpet, it was better than watching the movie itself. The premiere of the movie is better than the movie itself. It is horrible. I want to say that this movie should not be taken as like a Spider-Man IP movie. If you think of this movie in any way outside of a Spider-Man IP, then this honestly is not a terrible movie. This movie is like a Final Destination movie. If it was set back in 2003 like this original movie was, it would still be the worst thing that happened in New York City in the last couple of years, but it probably would still have another movie and a DVD release of the third movie. The one thing about this movie that was just so unbelievably bad, like they teased the movie that like Sydney Sweeney's actually going to be like in a superhero outfit being a superhero. But if you watch the trailers for the movie, that is the only time you will see the Spider Girls as them in their outfits. There's two scenes, the one you've seen in the trailer and another one with about 2 minutes left in the film for about 15 seconds. That's it. I am not joking. It was like, what was this marketing? I've heard a lot of flack of people giving on Dakota Johnson for how bad that she played in this movie. But honestly, I thought that she was the only good part of this movie. I feel like she put her whole pussy into this movie. Like, it was bad, but I felt Dakota Johnson made it better. And if anyone would have replaced her, it would have been even worse, honestly. But Sydney Sweeney actually made me hate the movie more. She was just playing like a teenager that wasn't loved by her parents. I hated her and wish she wouldn't be loved by her parents, if that makes sense. Like, her first scene in the movie was like a nurse saying if there's any immediate family for the woman that's in the hospital. And Sydney Sweeney just starts off by saying like, well, I'm her stepdaughter. And it's like, so your family, like, why did you make a reference that you're the stepdaughter? And then the dad was like, maybe you shouldn't come in to see your stepmom in the hospital. And she's like, oh, that's fine. I'll go home. Like, why did you go to the hospital if you're just gonna go back? Like, it really did not feel needed for her to be in this movie. And I've heard a lot of people talk about how bad the villain is. But yeah, the villain is justly shitted on for a reason. I know the anime fans would understand it, but have you ever watched when they do the English dub and it just doesn't match to the mouths of obviously the Japanese characters? Well, that's literally like the entire time that you're watching the villain of this movie. Like, it literally looks like he's speaking Spanish and like they just dubbed him over in English, because I was trying to follow his mouth and understand what he was saying. There are times when he's literally talking and his mouth is not moving. Like, is that like a creative choice? Like, you couldn't find any other like film to put in between when he's not talking? The two people that I felt really did try to make this as best as they could was Dakota Johnson and then like the villain's assistant, because most of the time when he's talking to his assistant, like, it's just her sitting there and listening to him talk until her line comes up. So you know they shot a bunch of B-roll in like before and after when she speaks to make sure that it was like covered. Like, when I went to go and buy my ticket, I checked multiple times throughout the day to see if there was anyone else going to these movies. And I ended up going to the last showing of the day. When I bought the ticket early in the day, no one was going. No one was going to any other shows throughout the entire day. Like, I think there was one other showing that had about 3 people in the front row, which that's even worse torture than I experienced, because they're in the front row and can't even, like, why would you buy the front row? I ended up going in and there was about 8 other people that ended up going to the showing, which blew me away. The dialogue was so bad that even though 8 other people were in this movie, there were people yelling at the movie. They were telling the actors to shut up, which is like, why? But also based. Like when I left the movie theater, there was like a group of people that left with me, and they were all just saying that the movie was so laughably bad. And it's the perfect way to describe it, because there are times when I was laughing at the movie that you shouldn't be laughing at. Like, it's supposed to be like a serious time, and it's like, did you watch the movie? Like, this movie is perfect for Stevie Wonder. Like, the first 10-15 minutes of the movie really just felt like that one TV show that I always get TikToks for, like 911 or whatever it is. They're in an ambulance, they're saving people's lives, yada yada. Like, it's just ridiculous, over dramatized things that happen with an ambulance. And that was like the first 10-15 minutes of the movie, and I was like, okay, well, like, if this is the movie, like, they did their jobs in making an interesting ambulance drama. And the thing is I don't know who was running the trailers either, because the trailers set the tone for making the movie bad as well. Like, if you were taking a kid to this movie, they're going to be crying before the movie starts, because I only got horror and thriller trailers. There was not a decent trailer. I think there was one Despicable Me trailer, and that was the only trailer that a kid could watch beforehand. Because after that, there was like a tarot card trailer and a bunch of other like thriller or like horror movie trailers. And I was like, what genre is this movie supposed to be in? Like, why was every single movie setting me up to be like scared? If you want to save a few bucks in this movie, I'm going to go ahead and show you 3 clips if you want to just watch these instead. So there is the office scene where they're doing CPR, because there was legit like a full 2 or 3 minute scene of them just doing CPR. There's a lot of CPR in this movie, and I know she plays like was she like a first responder? So like, I know there's a lot of CPR in this movie, but there's just a scene where she's just teaching them CPR. And the entire time I was watching it, I was just thinking of Michael Scott doing the "first I was afraid, I was petrified," and that was like all I could think about. The second one actually relates to Marvel. It's when, you know, Doctor Strange gets pushed out of his body. Yeah, for some reason they did an exact rip-off scene of that for some unknown reason. And the last one, if you've ever played Fallout 4 and you've ever done the memory den, congrats. You know how the movie goes up to until about 20 minutes before the end of the movie. I've saved you time and precious days that you cannot get back after thinking about this movie all the time. Like, I went and watched the movie last night, and after watching Morbius and Madame Web back-to-back, I couldn't record this last night because I was so drained. It felt like Morbius drained all the blood out of me, and then Madame Web just kicked me while I was down. Also, I felt like Madame Web's like ultimate power, her ultimate power was literally just like Zenyatta ulting in Overwatch 2. She was doing the opposite of what 2Mad did. That's the best way I can describe it. Overall, I think this movie is probably like a 2.5, 3 out of 10. I really thought maybe that I would be able to add an asterisk and put like a 1 Dune bucket on it just because Sydney Sweeney, but like her performance was so bad. Yeah, overall, this movie's probably like a 3 out of 10. And that's generous. But that's just because I didn't record this immediately after watching. If I was watching, probably like a 1.5. I'm being realistic. I'm gonna do a quick overview of Morbius because everyone has seen it, and I've seen how it now relates to Madame Web. Did the same person write both of these movies? Because like, first things first, like Madame Web has Dakota Johnson. Like, she's probably a significantly better actor than Jared Leto. Jared Leto, me personally, is like the worst actor I've ever seen in my life. Like, I have never once enjoyed a film that he plays. I feel like he just has, and it may possibly just be because I don't enjoy this man as a person. Like, he has a cult. Like, did you know that Jared Leto just has a straight up cult on an island? Like, what are you doing, dude? The only time I've enjoyed Jared Leto is when I saw him visibly terrified when talking to the VTuber for the interviews. And that was like the best feeling for me because he didn't understand what he was looking at. And that's me every time I watch a Jared Leto film, because it's like, what are you doing? Why did you do every wrong choice in a film? And yet, how are you still getting movies? Like, I feel like I haven't seen Jared Leto since he did Morbius. And hopefully this is the last time I ever have to see him, if I'm being honest. I like how immediately in the movie, he just names a kid Milo and he's like, That's your name now. And then they go like 25 years into the future and he's just still named Milo. Why did we do that? Why did we just not name him originally Milo? What was the point of just like, that's your name now? Hey, 25 years later, that's still like you named him after a dead kid and then he just agrees to be named after the dead kid. I don't understand it. This movie's bad. I keep calling it Morbtown, but the funniest thing about Morbtown is when Matt Smith is running, like he's running next to the train and like it's all in slow-mo and like it's just so goofy. Like why did we what was the point of that? Also, Matt Smith as like a vampire just looked like a ghoul from Fallout 4. Like why do both movies relate to Fallout 4? Who wrote these movies? I feel like they just paid Tyrese Gibson, like the cop of this movie, just a bag to do nothing. Like if that's a job I can get, Sony, I'm here whenever you need me. I can be a stand-in and make 200,000. Just let me know. Oh yeah, and the first time that like she cuts her finger and Morbius is like right there and he's like losing his mind. When I first saw it, my first thought was this is probably how like simps felt when they opened Amaranth's fart jar, if that makes sense. He made the same face as probably the same simps did. My review on Morbius is nothing new than everyone else's, I'm sure. It's just Jared Leto sucks. Jared Leto sucks. Like, can we hit the trifecta? Yeah, Jared Leto sucks huge balls. And that's really all. That's really it. That's really it. Like, I checked my phone to see what I rated this movie last night. I gave Madame Web a 3. I actually gave Morbius like a 2.5. So believe it or not, Madame Web is better than Morbius. I guess. Both of them are bad. Don't watch them back to back. Tell your family you love them because if you watch them back to back, you will die.